Welcome to Mission Evolution Radio Show with Gwilda Wiyaka, bringing together today's leading experts to uncover ever-deepening spiritual truths and the latest scientific developments in support of the evolution of humankind. For more information on Mission Evolution Radio with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit www.missionevolution.org. And now, here's the host of Mission Evolution, Miss Gwilda Wiyaka.
Many indigenous cultures, including the Aboriginals, believe we dream reality into being. If this is so, can we choose what we dream? Mission Evolution Radio Show is coming to you around the world on the X Zone Broadcast Network, xzbn.net. With us this hour to explore the dreamlike nature of reality is Paul Levy. Paul is a pioneer in the field of spiritual emergence. As a wounded healer in private practice, Paul assists others who are also awakening to the dreamlike nature of reality. He's written 6 books. His latest book is a new and expanded version of the Quantum Revolution, Awakening to the Dreamlike Nature of Reality. Paul has also written 3 books on the wetiko mind virus. Levy is the founder of the Awakening in the Dream community in Portland, Oregon. An artist, he's deeply steeped in the work of Jung and has been a Tibetan Buddhist practitioner for 40 years. His website, awakeninthedream.com. Paul, thanks for joining us on Mission Evolution.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here with you. Really, thank you for the invite.
Yeah, this is such a wonderful topic, and it's old and new at the same time, isn't it? So when did you first become interested in dreams?
Oh, well, so that's a good question. I had a spiritual awakening that literally transformed my life in 1981, but it was very difficult. And I immediately got thrown in mental hospitals and misdiagnosed as being mentally ill. And I knew I wasn't. I knew I was having an awakening, but it was so traumatic over that next 18 months, maybe 3, 4, 5 times I got hospitalized. And I was in such deep trouble, psychologically, that then I began night after night having these dreams, these unbelievable dreams that were teaching me and were showing me what was happening. And I had no idea what to do with them. I wasn't fluent in dreams at that point in my life. But I really paid attention, and I began studying about dreams and working on them every day. And they saved me. They actually healed me in a way that, it's still ongoing, but that's really my first encounter with dreams. So that was over 40 years ago.
It's really kind of sad that in our culture, there's no recognition of people going through an initiation. In all indigenous cultures, it would be recognized and they'd be farmed out to the shaman for guidance. But it's yo-yo time. You're on your own, aren't we?
Oh my God. And particularly in the early 80s, which it was like way back in the Stone Age, where any abnormal behavior is immediately pathologized, where, like you're saying, in indigenous cultures, they would understand, oh, this person might be being called by the spirit. And almost always, if not always, when somebody is having a real genuine spiritual initiatory experience, from the outside, it looks like they're going crazy. And where in the West, we immediately diagnose them as being mentally ill, in indigenous cultures, they would recognize, oh, this person, like I was saying, might be being called by the spirits, and they would be supported and taken care of. And it's a very different. And the thing I want to say about me having dreams, that's so typical because the unconscious is compensatory. So when we're in psychological trouble, that's when the unconscious tends to manifest, in giving us these dreams that help us. So that's not atypical what happened to me. That's a very archetypal experience.
Yeah, and it can be so intense. And at the same time, your dreams start changing. It's enough to make you wonder yourself if you're losing it. So, Paul, what exactly are dreams?
Yeah, well, they're the unmediated expression of the unconscious. And, so the point, as far as I'm concerned, is that it's incredibly healing for us when we just get programmed and conditioned into our culture and we identify with a separate self, with an ego. that then we're disconnected from our nature. And so the unconscious, being compensatory, will send us dreams as a way of helping us to deepen the connectedness between our consciousness and our unconscious. And when we have a permeable sort of boundary between the two, and there's a real conversation and like sort of like an intimate relationship that's happening between the consciousness, our consciousness, and the unconscious, that actually helps us to integrate these two seeming opposites, and that can only be healing.
But when we're starting to integrate the unconscious with the conscious, doesn't that also have the effect of making us look like we're not all together altogether?
Well, but that's why it's important in a sense to create, this is an alchemical word, to create a container, whether it be in yourself or with your support system or with your therapist or your spiritual community. Because yeah, when we snap out of the mainstream consensus spell, it can appear like we're kind of a little bit crazy, and we're so sensitive that if we then get seen that way, it affects us and it can actually induce in us to manifest as being crazy. But that's why it's really important. People are so in such a fragile, vulnerable, open state when they're awakening, to have that support, that spiritual community, that container, mentorship, have spiritual friends who are seeing the potential. Oh my God, it's like very quantum, where they could be going crazy or they could be awakening, and it's not determined, it's probabilistic. And of course, if we then hold them in the light and see the healthy part of them that's emerging, that makes it more probable that that's how they will manifest.
In it At the same time, it's a real juggling act for us, isn't it? I mean, for the awakening one, in that sometimes those dreams or those experiences can be more real than reality, and you have to get a filter real fast what you say around people that you can't trust. Did you
Yeah,
have
yeah.
difficulty with that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I was a naive 24-year-old kid when I got hit by a bolt of lightning, in my brain. It ignited after a few years of intense meditation. And I began to recognize, oh my God, this is a collective dream. We're all dream characters in each other's dreams. We're interconnected. There's no separate self. My heart was just exploding in love and compassion. And I was very naive and very innocent in just wanting to share what I was realizing with other people. And that really freaked people out, And it makes me think of, over the years, I become friends with some, these world famous psychiatrists, because they had heard about my process. And there was one of them, Mack, John Mack from Harvard. He wrote a book, Abduction, about people being abducted by aliens. And of course, Harvard tried to get rid of him, but he was, an incredible scientist. And he told me one time we were hanging out, he says, yeah, his definition of being crazy is not knowing who to tell what. And according to that definition, I was crazy because I was having these revelatory, mystical experiences, and I was naively sharing with them with these psychiatrists who were just pathologizing them.
That's what they're taught to do, for sure. So,
Yeah, yeah.
Paul, how many types of dreams are there?
Well, I mean, the thing about dreams, they're multidimensional. So on the one hand, there's ordinary dreams where we don't know we're dreaming. Then and that might just be having to do with our personal psychology. Then there's dreams where we're actually picking up information about other people, or other outer situations. Then there's archetypal dreams where, we're seeing the deeper pattern that's informing our species. Then there's lucid dreams, and in lucid dreams, I have lucid dreams, at certain moments, and they can oftentimes be profound mystical spiritual experiences. So there's a lot of different dreams, but the point is that for any one person to actually have relationship with their unconscious in such a way that they remember their dreams and actually are impacted by them, that is priceless. That's a blessing.
Well, are there dreams where we actually communicate with other people, other dreamers?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I have a friend of mine who was such a profound awakened being, and he was a lucid dreamer, and he had a school of other people, when they would meet every night in their lucid dreams, and he would give them teachings. And, just as one extreme example, but the point is we're all interconnected, particularly through the psyche, through the collective unconscious. We're all in a natural way telepathic. And so, yeah, we can definitely be communicating. And actually, it makes me think of in his work, the psychiatrist Jung talks about he might have a client and, he's working with the person's dreams and the client isn't having any dreams. And then Jung would meet with the wife or the husband or the kid of the client, and he realized they were having the person's dream, that
Oh
the
my
client
goodness.
wasn't. Yeah, yeah, it's a real thing.
Oh my goodness. And now, how about precognitive dreams?
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? That the idea is that the psyche is not bound by three-dimensional space and time. It's non-local. And that means that we can, have these prophetic dreams, these precognitive dreams about stuff that hasn't happened in linear time yet, but atemporally, it's already happened in the unconscious where time doesn't hold sway. And we have an aspect of our psyches that's non-local that's able to potentially tap into that. Sure.
Do you believe, this is just a thought of mine, but do you believe that sometimes deja vus are actually precognitive dreams that we don't necessarily remember?
Yeah, well, I think my sense of deja vu is that I think this is pretty well understood, is that when we have a deja vu experience, oh my God, this seems really familiar, there's a high probability that in the dream state we've dreamed exactly that scenario, but it hasn't manifested yet in our third dimensional life in space and time. And then when it does, it's that familiar feeling of deja vu. And why we have that familiar feeling is because we've dreamed it.
So, what about daydreams?
Yeah, well, daydreams can be profound. I mean, in alchemy, they make a difference between the true imagination and the false imagination. And the false imagination you could think of as just being like, some sort of daydreams, not all of them, but they can be just self-soothing to the ego to take us away from our pain or from ourselves, where the true imagination is tapping in to the sacred part of our imagination, in which like whatever we're imagining is actually having an impact on our lives and on the physical reality. And so I think it's important to make that distinction. But what my whole work is about is really trying, and it's based on the awakening I had in 1981, is trying to open people's eyes to that we're having a dream right now. This is nothing other than a collectively shared dream that all of us are dreaming up into materialization, and we've gotten entranced by our own creative genius, thinking this
Well,
is
we're going to
real.
have we're going to have
Okay.
to look at the entranced on the other side of a station break. Paul and I will return very shortly, so don't go away. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org.
One people, one nation, searching for the light. One people, one nation, coming from the stars. One people, one nation. The end has come, the night has fallen. I have reached the end of days.
Who or what is wetiko? With us this hour discussing the collective madness we're experiencing is Paul Levy. Paul is the author of The Quantum Revelation, Awakening to the Dreamlike Nature of Reality. Okay, Paul, there's a question for you. I know you've done a lot of work with this. What is wetiko?
Well, what wetiko is, it's a Native American term for a mind virus, and it's actually at the root of the collective madness and the incredible evil that our species is playing out all over the world. And Now if people hear the idea of a mind virus and they think, oh, that's woo-woo or new age or whatever, all it really means is that the origin of and the solution of our collective madness is to be found within the psyche. And that's a no-brainer. And so, I've written 3 books on wetiko. The point is there's a lot to say about it. It works through the unconscious projective tendencies of our mind in such a way that we entrance ourselves via our own projections, and it operates through the blind spots of our psyche. We all have blind spots in such a way that we literally put ourselves under a spell. But I point out that it's a very quantum phenomena. Finally, like encoded within the mind virus, within wetiko, is its own vaccine, is its own cure, is its own healing. And not only that, it's actually helping us to awaken. But if we don't recognize that it's a revelation, it will kill us, as is evidenced all around us in the world today.
Would you go into it a little bit? You call it a collective madness that we're all
Yeah, yeah.
experiencing. Would you go into that a little bit? What do you mean
Sure,
by
sure. Well, what I mean, in the work of Jung, which I've been studying for 40 plus years, he talks about that the great danger that our species is facing is, a psychic epidemic, is a collective psychosis. And the thing about this mind virus, when somebody really is taken over by it, and we all potentially have it at any given moment, it's contagious. And so when a group of people who are, entranced in a certain way come together, they can reinforce each other's point of view. That can easily become an avalanche, and a psychic avalanche, and create a collective psychosis. And that's what wetiko is. And, we are in the middle of a collective psychosis of titanic proportions. I mean, one example is we are destroying the biosphere, the life support system of the planet, and we are investing the majority of our resources in creating weapons of mass destruction. I mean, how insane is that? But it's become like this normalized thing that people just go about their day pretending everything's okay, when we are committing collective suicide. I mean, what more evidence do we need of a collective psychosis?
So is this, it sounds like it might be greed-based.
Yeah, well, no, that's one aspect of it, is greed, is that, this mind virus, the wetiko mind virus, it's insatiable. You can never get satisfied. So it has to do with endless consumption and power over others, because it's identified in essence with the separate self, thinking that I exist in here and there are others out there that are separate. And that's totally in distinction to what every spiritual tradition is talking about, is that we're interconnected and interdependent.
Would you go into the blind spots that Jung came up with that you were talking about?
Yeah, sure. Well, wetiko is a form of psychic blindness, and it's a peculiar form of blindness that not only does it not know it's blind, but it believes it's sighted. And not only does it believe it's sighted, it thinks it's more sighted than people who actually see. And so, so I'm pointing out again and again, and in the Bible, they, which can be seen symbolically as utterances of the soul itself, how often does it talk about there is this, that people's eyes don't see, that they're closing their eyes to the light, that they're identified with the darkness. And wetiko is a form of blindness. It's a hysterical form of blindness, in that it's a self-induced form of blindness, that we ourselves are closing our eyes and keeping ourselves blind. And that's become a chronic condition that gets rendered into the unconscious, so we don't even know that we're doing it. And in a sense, that's a way of describing wetiko.
Enchanted by our own dreams of grandeur.
Yeah.
When we're dealing with wetiko, is it a cyclic sort of thing? Like there's times on the planet when it's more likely to be prevalent than others?
Well, it's funny. I've gone into, what is the origin of it? And there are all these theories, that people have around, oh, there was a collective trauma, or there was, intervention with negative ETs, or, and all, but I have no idea about that. But what I point out is that it's a condition that we are creating unconsciously in this very moment, and in this very moment, or not. Okay. And so, yeah, I'm like pointing out that from the quantum point of view, one of the quantum possibilities for our species is for enough of us to sufficiently awaken so that we can connect with the part of us, our true nature, which is love and compassion, and recognize that we're interdependent and interconnected with each other, and create a world that reflects that realization. That's totally possible. But the thing that's happening with the wetiko, because it's not recognized, people don't even know about it, don't even recognize that it's a revelation that's teaching us something. Because of that, it's like having a recurring dream. If you don't get the message in the dream recurs in more amplified form. It becomes more and more nightmarish until you actually get the message. Something is being revealed to us through our collective madness, through the wetiko psychic epidemic. That's what I've been pointing out for the last 40 years. And our survival as a species, it depends on recognizing what's being revealed to us.
Oh, interesting. And then those infected with wetiko are the ones that judge the awakening ones as insane, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm evidenced by that. It's tragic. I have a great life and a big community and lots of friends and all that. And my parents have passed away, but the rest of my family, I'm in Portland, Oregon. They're on the East Coast. They all think, oh, we have this mentally ill relative, who's in denial of his mental illness. And yeah, so here I am, trying to shed light on the darkness, and that's how, the darkness, at least through the unconscious of my family, is responding.
That isn't that fairly typical though, because the ones that don't go along with the agreed upon reality are seen as the virus, the enemy, and need to be invalidated.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Not just invalidated, but in a sense extinguished and exterminated. And that's archetypical. And that's why you have to develop in Buddhism, they talk about you have to have sort of this skillful means of, you know, if I'm just overtly, proclaiming stuff in a certain way, I'll be, concretized as being crazy. And then whatever help I can be, whatever medicine I'm offering, the transmission will get aborted.
It can be
So
invalidated, yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, I've really, over 40 plus years have developed, like I'm saying the same thing now that I was saying 40 plus years ago that got me hospitalized, but now I have psychiatrists who study with me, because I've integrated what I've realized to whatever degree I have, and I've developed a fluency and an ability to articulate it in a way that can connect with people. So I think that's important.
Yeah, it definitely needs to be reconnected, doesn't it? So, what do you mean when you say Wetiko is a dreaming phenomenon?
Yeah. Well, we collectively are dreaming up each moment this universe together out of the void each and every moment. And there is this Wetiko psychic epidemic that's killing us. We have dreamed it up. We have dreamed up this collective madness. It's a reflection of our own madness, of our own unconsciousness. And so it's a dreaming phenomena. That's what I point out again and again. It's not something separate from us. It's not something separate from our consciousness. And pointing out that holographically encoded in the manifestation of the collective psychosis of Wetiko, it's actually a revelation. It's a living revelation. It's offering us everything we need to know in order to wake up and heal. But if we don't recognize, it's like having a dream. And if you don't recognize what the dream is showing you, well, then you get no benefit.
Doesn't the reoccurrence of it, though, also get more blatant? I mean, I can't help but look around us, and I'm not going to get into politics or anything, but I can't help but look around us and see what all's going on. It's becoming so blatant. There's nothing subtle about it.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
yet,
yeah.
And yet we're not seeing it.
Yeah, well, it's like, evil, and I talk about, the profound importance of being able to talk about evil, that evil is a real phenomena. And I'm not talking in a metaphysical sense or theologically. I'm just talking about in the psyche, psychologically. There's clearly evil. And instead of in the past, maybe it was hiding in the corners or underground, it's completely out. There's no hiding. But one way of understanding that from the dreaming point of view, this being a dream, is that that's an expression that a really strong light is nearby, because the darkness wouldn't be so overtly manifesting if there wasn't an incredibly bright light that was close by.
I know in healing, when you're doing body work, sometimes they try to stretch out an injury to take it to the place it belongs, get back to the shape that you need it to be in. But other times it's much more effective to push it clear into its extreme contraction and then let go. Are we in that place of extreme contraction in our process?
Yeah, well, that's a really good way of viewing it. And, of extreme contraction, it makes me think when a mother is giving birth, what happens? There are extreme contractions. And, but the idea is to keep your eye on the prize, on the newborn, on the baby. But the thing which is interesting about the contractions, that we are in this incredibly fearful, contracted state that's an infinite regress that self-reinforces and just self-generates, ad infinitum, with no exit strategy. In essence, that is something as individuals we are doing to ourselves. There's no one else doing that. It's like we're pinching ourselves and we're complaining about the pain, but we don't realize that we ourselves are the source of the very suffering that we're experiencing.
But isn't that pinch like trying to wake yourself up as well?
Yeah, but that's why one, paradoxical therapy is what it's called. Instead of, trying to get rid of the pinch, it's like, no, they will instruct the person, pinch yourself harder. Keep on pinching until you recognize that you yourself are doing that,
And we're creating what we're living that's pinching us.
Yeah. Well, how we, you see, this is where quantum physics comes in, is like, the key thing is how we interpret what's happening.
Well, interpretation is hugely important, and we're going to need to get into that. You just opened up another nice topic on the other side of the station break. Paul and I will be right back to continue our discussion, so stay right there. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org.
Searching through the night, one people, one nation. Searching for the light, one people, one nation. Coming from the stars, one people, one nation. I've been broken, shattered, cast to the wind. I am scattered upon the wind. I've been broken, shattered, cast to the wind. I am scattered upon the wind. I've been broken, shattered, cast to the wind.
When is a dream more than a dream? This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. With us discussing the power of dreams is Paul Levy. His website, awakeninthedream.com. Paul, quantum physics is commonly viewed as esoteric and associated with the unseen. So how does this unseen concept influence dreams in our day-to-day existence and wetiko?
Yeah, well, in quantum physics, they discovered that the real base of the physical universe is immaterial, is mind, is consciousness. And, I point out endlessly, I point out that quantum physics is empirically proven that we are having a collective dream, that this is nothing other than a dream, but the typical corporately trained academic physicists are not prepared to take in the revelation that is quantum physics, because quantum physics, we have, just like we've dreamed up wetiko, we've dreamed up quantum physics as the antidote to wetiko. That quantum physics, it's a revelation. It's literally showing us the dreamlike nature. It's showing us our place in that dream, and it's showing us who we are.
So what is the power of dreams?
Well, the power of dreams, this is the dream. And so, but we actually go to sleep at night and have night dreams that can show us what's playing out in our relationships, that can show us what's happening in the world, and what's happening in ourselves. It can give us inspiration. It can show us our path. I mean, it's so open-ended, the blessing power of dreams, which is the same thing as saying that, the blessing of the unconscious, this gift that is the unconscious. It's profound, but unfortunately so many people in the modern world are just shut off from the unconscious and have no relationship to it, and that's tragic.
Which brings up, there's a lot of people that say, well, I know I go into REM sleep because my little watch tells me I do, but I never dream. I never remember my dreams. And that's a lot of people that have said that.
Yeah, well, what it is, just to be clear, we all dream every night. So it's not like they're not dreaming. They just don't remember their dreams. And, and that's why when I had my whole awakening and I was immediately hospitalized and traumatized and almost killed by psychiatry, I began having dreams because, like I'm saying, the thing with dreams, they're compensations. When we get overly sort of one-sided and we're not connected to the center, to ourselves, we get out of balance, the unconscious compensates and sends us dreams whose language is symbols. And, and the point is to get into resonance with the symbol, and then we get back in balance.
I'm glad you brought up the symbol, because a lot of dreams are metaphorical in nature, are they not?
Yeah, no, well, they're totally metaphorical, and they're symbolic. And interestingly, quantum physics is a totally symbolic procedure. The idea being, when you really extrapolate, that this universe is a living oracle that's speaking symbolically. Like one of the words for enlightenment in Buddhism, Mahamudra, it translates as the great attitude or the great symbol. Like this universe is continually speaking to us like an oracle, and its language are symbols. And
well, isn't our language symbols? I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, well, this is why in his work, Jung, goes on and on. His whole career, decades-long career, the main thing he was trying to, to get across to people was to cultivate symbolic awareness.
It's huge. And yet there are some dreams that are literal, aren't there?
Well, the thing, yeah, I mean, being symbolic doesn't preclude on one level. They can be literal. Dreams are multidimensional. And so, you can have one dream and you could realize, oh my God, it's addressing all these different dimensions of my process. And one of them might be literally true and the other are symbolic truths. And they're not exclusive. They can both be true at the same time.
So they can be both literal and metaphorical at the same time, same dream.
Yeah, they're multidimensional. We don't want to constrain the profundity of what a dream can be offering us. I mean, I'm still getting blessings from dreams I had like a number of years ago, that all of a sudden something will happen in my life and I'll remember this dream that I had, and all of a sudden I'll have a deeper understanding of what the dream was showing me, but I couldn't have understood it maybe a year ago or 10 years ago. Sort of like if you have this piece of a puzzle, of a jigsaw puzzle, and you don't know where it goes. Well, it's not time for you to know where it goes, because you need other pieces to come together before it becomes clear, oh, this piece that I'm holding goes over there.
Well, and again, let's go back to native peoples all over the world. They, of course, revered dreams, but they also revered storytelling. And isn't that what a dream is doing? Is a storytelling, and it has your spiritual text have that same quality of, I can read something out of the Tao this month, and it means this to me. And then 2 years later, I can open up that same verse, and it means something totally different, but every bit as profound. Like the meaning deepens. The meaning deepens in stories as you retell them. Does the same thing happen with our dreams?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's great that you bring up like the idea of storytelling, because storytelling is the art of the shaman. And who is the shaman? The shaman is the wounded healer. The shaman is the dreamer. The shaman is the creative artist. And I point out again and again, and I'm coming from my own experiences, that we are all wounded healers. We are all shamans in training, that's the major archetype that's activated in the collective unconscious of our species. And it has everything to do with storytelling.
Within dreams, if we're dreaming our reality, okay, who's the dreamer and who's the dream? I mean, we're living in a dream, and yet we dream our reality. Can we get a hold of the reins of this thing somehow and choose what we create?
Yeah, but then the question is who's choosing? In other words, the idea being because we're not in touch with our nature, we then are dreaming, this nightmare dream. That's why I call the wetiko, the mind virus, the nightmare mind virus, because it induces nightmares. But the point is that when we connect with our true nature, with, the self, higher self, you could think of it, the God within, then all of a sudden we can start to dream a dream that's in alignment with who we're discovering ourselves to be, which is, what is that nature? That nature is love, is compassion. That nature is creative, but to the extent that we're split from our nature, disassociated from our nature, we're going to dream a dream of separation and fragmentation. So the external world is just reflecting our internal state.
So, what changes do you think what widespread understanding of the power of dreams? What changes would that bring to our culture?
Oh my God. Well, if enough people really connect with our nature and have lucidity in the waking dream and connect with each other and contemplate what they're realizing, that, oh my God, this universe that we found ourselves in is a collectively shared dream that we are dreaming up, and it's manifesting in such a problematic, nightmarish way because we've been programmed and conditioned to dream it in this way because we're identified with the separate self, which isn't who we are at all. When sufficient number of people who are awakening to that realization come together, they can discover something. And what they can discover is that, oh my God, we can get in phase with each other and dream a different dream. And that's not some sort of like magical thinking, new age woo-woo. That's what this is all about, because another way of saying that is we discover we can consciously step into our own evolution.
So the hundredth monkey theory fits in here, doesn't it? If you get
Oh,
enough
completely.
people, and it doesn't have to be that many, does it? About what
No.
percentage? Do you have any idea?
Yeah. No, I have no idea, but that's an archetypal idea. In the Bible, they talk about the symbolic number of 144,000. That's the equivalent, like the hundredth monkey. One way to understand that, if you're baking bread, there has to be, you want to have sufficient amount of yeast, and if there's enough yeast in the dough, the bread will rise, right? The whole bread doesn't have to be filled with yeast, so there just has to be a certain critical mass. But what I point out is that it could be even one person in this moment who's listening to this podcast having realization, seeing the dreamlike nature, owning their shadow, seeing the wetiko mind virus, awakening to their nature, however you say it. That could be the very thing that catalyzes a global awakening.
Well, Christ certainly started some of that, as did Buddha, right? And they were not accepted in their time.
Yeah, well, it was really interesting to me when I learned that Christ was seen by his family as having gone mad. And that made me happy because, that's how I'm seen by my family. Yeah, but they, think about it. And Christ in the apocryphal text, he is again and again saying, he goes, I am a mirror to those that perceive me. If you recognize yourself in me, then you will be as I am. That Christ was dreamed up, just like what Tico was dreamed up. But something else happened when Christ was dreamed up and he incarnated. There was another figure that arrived on the scene at exactly the same moment, and that was Satan. So here's the light, here's the dark, symbolized by Christ and Satan, and that's an expression of the incredible polarization in the collective psyche that existed in humanity at that moment in time.
Well, it exists in humanity at this moment, doesn't it? Polarization is running rampant.
Oh my God, but Jung points out in extreme that he goes, the sickness of our time is a sickness of disassociation that manifests as extreme polarization. And he says, but this is actually an opportunity. It's like the collective psyche is pregnant and something is like thirsting to be reborn through this incredible polarization. But everything depends on if we recognize the deeper process. If we just get absorbed in it and unconsciously act it out, then we're doomed.
Yeah, there's enough thread of that going on right now, isn't there? So if enough of us awaken at this time, what changes do we see?
Well, that I would offer to the listener, to invoke your creative imagination. Say if you were to wake up and have a lucid dream right now in the waking dream and imagine other people who are also having lucid dreams in the waking dream and you connect with each other, okay, then how do you imagine you would dream it? Like for me, to whatever degree I've awakened, and I'm a work in progress, like is everyone in the universe itself, okay, I'm writing books and giving interviews as my sort of form of activism, of spiritual activism. But then, I really would suggest to your listeners, how would you, if you were to really wake up and stabilize that lucidity?
It's time for that commercial break. Stay tuned with us as Paul and I continue to explore the many mysteries of dreams. This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org.
One nation, searching for the light. One people, one nation, coming from the stars. One people, one nation, to heal the spirit. Brilliant feathers of an unearthly hue glide by on the edge of his dream. A whisper of touch, an unheard song. Whose bird takes flight, prompted by his broken.
Can you gain power over your reality? This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. We're continuing our discussion with Paul Levy. His website, awakeninthedream.com. Paul, I think a lot of us are having the experience of suddenly looking at the world and the ways we've always just simply accepted it. That's the way it is, and going, that can't be right. Right? In the morning, look in the mirror and have the same response. But seriously, there are a lot of people that are looking out there and going, this is a nightmare, like you were saying. What happens when a person goes to that place? What's the best next step for them?
Well, before I can even get to the best next step, the danger is to get absorbed and identified with pessimism and despair and getting depressed, because then we disconnect from our creative agency, and then we're part of the problem. Then we're going to being a dream, we'll dream up all the evidence we need to confirm our pessimism and despair in a self-reinforcing feedback loop. So the idea is to connect with our nature. Our nature is creative. Quantum physics has revealed to us that we have this unimaginably vast creative power to influence this universe. But to the extent that we're unconscious of that creative power, then seemingly outside forces will tap into our own unconscious creative power and turn it against us. That's why, again and again, I talk about that the medicine for the wetiko mind virus, there are a lot of ways of saying it, but I'll say it this way, is to connect with the creative spirit.
At the same time, isn't one of the medicine against it is recognizing it exists in the first place?
Wait, I'm not quite sure I understand. Is to recognize?
The wetiko virus isn't part of the process of no longer being subject to it, is recognizing it exists in the first place and where it exists in our life. Mm-hmm.
Completely. That's why you see, again and again, I point out the profound importance of seeing it, because wetiko only has power over us to the extent that we don't see it. And once we start to see it, wetiko will do everything in its power to distract us and to make us turn a blind eye towards it. And, and like, for example, like I know some really beautiful new age spiritual people who don't want to talk about evil or anything, and they just turn a blind eye to evil, not knowing that by doing that, because they're avoiding relationship with the part of themselves, they're feeding the very evil that they're turning a blind eye from. So that's why, like you were saying, it's profoundly important to see wetiko.
So back to the blind spots. Oftentimes, blind spots are created by trauma, compensations, judgments to avoid our trauma, repeating. Um, and that does relate to that denial and not even talking about evil, doesn't it?
Oh, completely. And that's why, I mean, how I had my awakening, it was based on this incredible evil that was playing out in my family, and the story isn't important, but it just, it was an incredible eye opener for me. And I was the one who was seeing it and was pointing at it and trying to shed light on it. And then I couldn't believe by me doing that, I actually became the one who was seen to be evil and who was seen to be crazy. And so, yeah, no, there's something so important about coming to terms with evil. Like as Jung says, it's a great power that's striding across the world stage. And if we don't come to terms with it, like I'm saying, then it doesn't look good.
Don't we have to come, you mentioned, don't we have to come to terms with it within ourselves before we can do anything about it in the world? I mean,
Yeah,
within
well,
as within, so
absolutely.
without.
The best way of dealing with the darkness in the world is to become aware of our own darkness, to whatever degree we can, because the way wetiko works is that, if you remember, I'm talking about that it works through the projective tendencies of the mind. So if we see evil out there, and then we think it's out there without recognizing that that's just a reflection of the evil inside of us. If we then think it's out there, then we ourselves have fallen under the spell of the mind virus. So like what you're saying is so right on, that the real key is to shed light on our own darkness, on our own potentiality for evil. We all have that. And to the extent that we've shed light on that, then we can be a positive agent that brings light into the darkness of the world.
That's a big order, isn't it? I've been scratching around in my own psyche, of course, to understand what part of this creation has come from within me, and boy, it just ricochets you right back out before you can get a hold of it. Sometimes, is that why we can rely on our dreams, because we aren't as in a strong state of denial when we're asleep, and we can start to receive indications as to where this is within?
Yeah, no, well, that's exactly right. Like dreams are, the greatest achievement of the 20th century in psychology, according to Jung, was what he called the discovery of the reality of the psyche. That the psyche is real, is the most real thing. And so instead of, when we have a dream thinking, my conscious ego invented this dream, no, your conscious ego is asleep. That's the psyche that's presenting you something, and it's presenting it in symbolic form. And it's like, how do you even put a price tag on that? It can change people's lives by having an important dream if they're able to take in what the dream is showing us.
I've heard of so many, great companies and this and that were started in the dreamscape. It's kind of amazing, that we don't use it more than we do. It's that time in the show, Paul, when I get to ask you, what's your mission?
Yeah, well, on the one hand, my personal mission is to wake up as much as I possibly can, and concurrent with that, and I've been doing this as much as I'm able, is to share what I've realized, in my awakening with other people, because, who are other people but parts of myself? We're not separate. And so that's really, I feel like I'm trying to help people awaken to their nature, to the dreamlike nature, to the incredible creative power in them, to the love and compassion that's intrinsic to all of our nature. And, that's really, that's the guiding light, the guiding compass in my life, really.
You've mentioned our creative spirit within. How do dreams help unlock that creative spirit within us?
Yeah, well, not only do they help unlock it, they are that creative spirit. They are tailor suited, speaking to exactly where we are in our process. In the same way that people who had visions of Christ, some people saw him as an old man or a young boy. In other words, spirit, the creative spirit, the Holy Spirit, the whole making spirit, it will take whatever form is appropriate to speak to the particular person. And so, the thing about dreams, when we connect with our nature, we realize our nature, by its very nature, is creative. And when you realize that, you embody and express yourself creatively. And the more you do that, the deeper you realize your nature in a positive feedback loop that creates light upon light in a world of darkness.
We could sure use some light. So the creative spirit, you says, as it shows up to different people in different ways. Doesn't it just kind of sink into our collective psyche and find the appropriate icon to communicate? Is that what's going on there?
Yeah. And that's why I'm pointing out that, one way of seeing the collective madness and the incredible evil that's playing out is that it's the form that our creative spirit, has taken. Like an example of somebody came into my office and had a dream last night they wanted to work on. And the dream was, oh, there was a pandemic and fascism is creeping all over the world. And, there's a new crazy administration in the US and there's wars in the Middle East and Ukraine. In other words, the dream they had last night was exactly what's happening in the world. And they asked me, how would I interpret that dream? I would basically reflect to them, well, clearly you're not in touch with your creative power because seemingly external forces are plugging into your own creative power and turning it against you. And what the dream is showing you is that you need to connect with your own creative agency that's intrinsic to your nature. And if you don't do that, you'll be having more and more dreams like that, and it'll be getting more and more amplified and more nightmarish.
Dreaming reality leaves you wondering which one is the dream, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, the thing that I'm pointing out from my own experience is that this is the dream. Don't think of, oh, this is like reality and then dreams at night are the illusion. No, dreams at night are like reflections and teaching us about the dreamlike nature of reality.
So how can dreams aid human evolution?
Oh, well, in the sense that they're helping, an individual person getting more in touch with their nature and getting more connected with their true self. And, as that's happening all across the globe, through individuals, and then as those individuals connect with each other, and they're realizing the dreamlike nature, they realize that they can dream themselves awake. That's what's available to us as a species. We can help each other to wake up. That's not some sort of new age fairy tale. That's what this is all about. That's being offered to us. But if we don't realize that, like I've been saying, then we're just going to continue on the path of destroying ourselves.
Do you think that there's something going on astrologically or whatever that is supporting the awakening of humankind?
Well, I'm hoping so, that we're entering into the age of Aquarius and maybe the Kali Yuga, the dark age. Some people are saying it's ending. I certainly hope so, but it certainly seems like this moment in time that we are living through collectively is an unbelievable moment. It's so insane and dangerous and flooded with darkness and with the incredible opportunity. Like sometimes it takes incredible pressure in the alchemical vessel of the human psyche in order to create light. And I'm hoping that that's what's happening right now.
Like the darkest time is right before dawn.
Exactly.
So what would you like to say to our worldwide audience about participating in the awakening?
Yeah, to the extent that you just really do, each one of us, to do our inner work. And instead of, there's a phrase Jung uses, instead of remaining artificially unconscious, when the time is in that moment and you're getting reflections from the world of your unconscious, of your shadow, of your blind spot, to have the courage to open your eyes and see your own darkness, which is the doorway to seeing your light. And to the extent, because this awakening can only happen via the individual, it's not a collective thing. Yeah.
It is an individual thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Paul, I could go on and on with you, but we are out of time. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, it's totally my pleasure. Really. Thank you.
You bet. Our guest this hour has been Paul Levy. Paul has written 6 books, his latest, a new and expanded version of the Quantum Revelation, Awakening to the Dreamlike Nature of Reality. To find out more about Paul, where you can find his books and all he has to offer, visit his website, awakeninthedream.com. This has been Mission Evolution with Gwilda Wiyaka. For more information or to enjoy past archived episodes, visit missionevolution.org. And join us next time. We will continue to bring resources for a rapidly evolving world.
Searching through the night.